Alex White, let's move on to the NAMA story, because there are many other stories and more explanations about NAMA. The Sunday Business Post has a story saying NAMA deal plans to give up €60 billion to banks. That's the big question this week, which will be coming out on Wednesday. What money, Brian Lenihan, what price they're likely to pay for these impaired assets. Sunday Business Post is suggesting 60 billion for assets valued around, at the moment, 90 billion property loans at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, that discount has been reported over the weekend as being likely to be announced by the Minister. Looks very modest indeed to me in terms of the overall speculation that's been going on. It seems, as I was saying earlier on, that what we're looking at is, look, we're turning on its head all of the principles that we have been told in relation to the basic issues of value in a capitalist system. Let's be clear about what's happening here. This is really, really radical. Because instead of the value of a piece of property being determined by the market, which we've been told is the way things work, it's law of supply and demand, that it's going to be distorted to a huge level. And this hope value is being put on these assets lying behind these impaired loans into the future, that we're now being asked to accept a kind of a speculative level of value, or at least a value that somebody will actually almost make up, conjure
it's impossible,
as to what
really,
it might be worth,
yes,
or what we hope it will be worth in the future. And it seems to me that is at the heart of this NAMA proposal. No matter all of these sort of spinning and everything else that the Green Party do or anybody else do, that's at the heart of it. It's not the case that we're being asked to pay, or at least that the state will pay market value for these assets. We saw the Carroll case during the week and how that sort of came tumbling down, how a quick scrutiny by a very
Clark, yes,
by Judge Clark can demonstrate to you the nonsense that lies behind this, this idea that we hope things will turn around, we expect things to turn. Now, many people, of course, including myself, hope that things will turn around for the economy, not necessarily for the property market, but for the economy generally, of which the property market is one important part. It is a transfer from the taxpayers to the shareholders. That's what it is. It is a bailout of the banks. Whatever about debate we may have as to whether it constitutes a bailout of the developers, and I actually think it in many ways is as well, but leave that controversy aside, it is unquestionably a bailout for the bank shareholders. That's what's happening. It is a direct transfer.
Yes, but Alex, we also believe that, or a lot of people believe that, you cannot let the banking system collapse in this country.
Of course not. And nobody is suggesting that you would let the banking system collapse. But that doesn't mean that you need to prop up the zombies that we effectively have at the moment. I mean, the reality is AIB, and possibly the Bank of Ireland as well, are insolvent. They are insolvent. They can't pay their debts. If they were called upon tomorrow, they can't do it.
But
this is an attempt to pull them out of that and to set it up for the future. And in my view, it's a mistake of historic proportions.
But if you give these assets, Alex, a very, very low value, and this is the whole thing about the Carroll ruling now, that if ACC go in and start actually conducting a fire sale of Zoe's assets, then we'll really see perhaps the day-to-day value, which will be almost
giving them a low value,
zero.
But Karen, it's not a matter of...
But the banks need the money.
Giving something a value. It has a value. Like, we're told, these are the people who tell us about the market. That is the value of the assets.
Yeah.
That is the value. You don't accord something sitting in Merrion Street and say, "Oh well, let's see what value we will give to a piece." That is the value.
Okay,
can I just say
Sean Ardan, yes.
That all of the comments that are being made at the moment are based on valuations that have come up in newspapers. Each asset is being individually valued in relation to the banks, and the valuation and the haircut will not be announced until Wednesday by the Minister for Finance. At that point in time, we will know whether AIB and Bank of Ireland in particular, because they're the ones that there's the greatest focus on, whether they are insolvent and how much they are insolvent by.
Will we know that on Wednesday?
On Wednesday, on the basis of the haircuts and on the basis of the valuation, what their surplus is, what their loan provision is at the moment.
You think we'll be given that sort of detail?
I believe on Wednesday we'll also be told that the government is taking significant shareholding. Now, I have no inside information on it, but I can see no other alternative than the government taking a very significant holding or interest in AIB in Bank of Ireland.
In the Sunday Business Post, they're suggesting it be over 50%. Are you saying it might be higher than that?
I would suggest that it will be significantly higher than that. It will be up to the level at which they can possibly go, while at the same time to be able to say that it is shares are on the market. There is private input into it. It's not national. So that the banks will still be in a position where they can go out. Two things. One, that they can raise money on the commercial market and do it in a commercial way. And two, that when they're lending, that the people won't be able to come up and say, listen, the government own the bank, you shouldn't lend to A because he's fired some people in a business. Yes. Now, and I think it's particularly important now.
I
think it's particularly important that the banks can act in a commercial way so that they're able to continue
Many
to get the economy
bodies
going.
act on commercial mandate.
What has happened today, the Anglo-Irish Bank is nationalised. It was only recently that there was a situation where a particular business was letting people go, and that the trade unions came along and said, Anglo-Irish Bank shouldn't lend to that particular body. Now, they could only do that because it was national. That shouldn't happen, because if it does happen, we're down the Swanee.
The state was told by the trade unions what should happen in relation to the Anglo-Irish and acted accordingly?
No, it didn't act accordingly.
But
there is the temptation always.
Already there's an offence being put into
to put pressure on
already in the NAMA, just briefly to point out, in relation to politicised lending, there's already a provision being put into the NAMA legislation which outlaws, an attempt to lobby. So, I mean, many semi-state bodies have a commercial mandate. We've a good history in this country of semi-states, even under Fianna Fáil, of semi-state bodies being able to act in a commercial way and not being politicised.
Linda O'Shea Farron,
Karen, I think, unfortunately, in this debate, it has reached a situation where, there are so many arguments to and for that there's... And I actually have a proposal, and I would love if somebody in the Department of Finance is listening to this, might take it seriously. In Friday's Irish Times, Saturday and Sunday, we found out that almost 15 million euros being paid by the government and state bodies to legal, financial and property advisors for services in relation to, quote, stabilising the banking sector up to the end of June. Right? 7.3 million went to Merrill Lynch and the NTMA, 3.9 million to Arthur Cox solicitors, 2.95 million to Price Waterhouse, etc. And I understand now Rothschild has been brought in after it went to tender. I worked as a corporate lawyer for 10 years in New York. This is basically a major corporate transaction. The only difference here is that there are politicians involved, because this is about a country's economy as opposed to the life of a major blue-chip American corporate, which I did for 10 years. Mergers, acquisitions, hostile takeovers, flotations of shares, that's what I did. And what happened in every single one of those transactions, which is what this is? The lawyers, the investment bankers, and the client. Now, we are the client in this transaction. We, the taxpayers. Not the government. We, the taxpayers. We're paying for these lawyers and bankers, and we're paying the price of the outcome, be it positive or negative. And what really happens in a conference room in the sky, in a shoebox, they all sit there for days on end and they talk what structure is the best structure. First thing you talk is structure. And that involves legal analysis and investment banking financial analysis. And now what I would really like Mr. Lennon to do is to say to Rothschild and Arthur Cox, go into that conference room, put the three options that have been put, your NAMA proposal, Labour's nationalisation proposal, which they say, by the way, they'll price by Wednesday.
He said he would on Wednesday.
Read for that, and the Fine proposal, which is very different now. And, of course, they're just saying that they're not even considering them. I understand that, since last April, they decided to go NAMA. And it is unfortunate that the opposition parties didn't come up with their proposals sooner. It's also unfortunate the summer break was there, and we only have the detail since the 10th September. What they need to do is compare and contrast the three. They do this in America, Ready Reckoner it's called.